What's up, guys? Greg here from Vibrant Performance, and I can't wait to show you what's up in this episode. We are getting back to everybody who had questions about how Aaron approached the downpipe. It's been really interactive, really great. Can't wait to answer more questions about what I'm about to do on the cold side. So in the intro of this build series, you guys really want to see us downsize this intercooler. Luckily, this catalog has everything I need in it to make that job as quick and easy as possible. Let's see how it happens. So in the name of response, we're gonna add work to my plate. Luckily, we have awesome product in our catalog that we can resort to, and we have end tanks ready to go. Weld ready out of the box. They are tongue and groove designed so that they just snap together, and they fit up great with select sizes of our intercooler cores. They can be mounted in a multiple of ways. They come undrilled, ready for you guys to choose your tubing size. End tanks play a critical role to the overall system. You can get out of control with the amount of volume in the end tank, but the end tank's only job is to disperse that air evenly across the core. So keeping volume to a minimum is important, and keeping transition angles to a minimum is also important. For that reason, we're gonna dip into the Vibrant catalog and start with our sheet metal end tanks that just snap together just like that. They come unwelded, brushed finished, so they're great for that DIYer who pick up one of our core, doesn't have the traditional equipment to fab these up like a metal brake and a laser cutter to cut the end tanks. These are a great solution for those people who want to do this themselves, and we're gonna show you how. We're gonna use HD clamps to connect the charge tubing. It's a great modular connection, allows for quick disconnect of the intercooler piping, but most importantly, allows the charge piping to move independent of the motor and the intercooler core. So you don't burst your tubing. YOLO. Although we're not gonna use the Freed Engineering intercooler core, we are gonna use his mounts because they're nice. We're gonna center this core in the car and make sure that we get it nice and 7. We're 7.5 there. Oh wow, my micrometer's pretty good today. Now we're gonna have a look around, envision where the charge tubing's coming in and out. And I think I'm gonna have this core come out a little more. The side has a nice clear path. I don't want this core to be making contact with this bumper during use. So I'm gonna space it out with this tube stock, and then that allows me to bring it in and out of the car consistently and make sure that it's got the right amount of gap. Then when I bring the core out, it'll sit flat against that, and now I know the core isn't angled to the car, and then I just have to center it. Just finished up on the lathe, made some weld bungs, mocked up underneath right now. I've lined the intercooler roughly back to center off of the same points. It's always important to pick a frame member or something coming off the chassis that you can use as a reference point that you'll go back to consistently. Luckily, these Freed Engineering mounts underneath here, they have slots for mounts, so I don't have to be exceptionally perfect with my mounting right at this moment. Once I get up to top where I use the second dowels, I'll have to be a little more precise, but given that leeway with those slots, we'll be good. All right, let's weld them up. Okay, guys. Everything's clean. The core comes out of the box ready to clean. I always like to wipe my filler. Dirt in your weld puddle is never a good thing. I need all the help I can get. Let's do this. Just finished gluing these weld bungs to the core, and we're gonna see if it still fits. Okay, I think that's gonna work. So we still have some movement left and right, not really much forward and back, but we can see that I'm still maintaining that gap up at the top here. The core's level, straight, and we'll be able to center it when we get there. All right, next up is end tanks. Planning's the name of the game here, and I know that I'm going to be welding the inside and outside of an end tank. I'm going to tack one side on and then fillet weld the whole inside and then tack the other side on and struggle with that inside weld. All right, do another one here. Obviously this plate is secured to the center section, and that's all I need right now. And I'm gonna flip it upside down and start welding the inside here. Sometimes you're gonna have to change your torch setup to get into some pretty tight spaces, because I've changed the end cap on my TIG torch here so that I can sink the TIG torch into the end tank so I can get into position a lot more comfortable. Again, it's very important to be comfortable while you're welding. These are all welded up inside and out. Again, we weld that inside seam just for reliability issues. It's really just a safeguard. Do be careful when you are welding the inside. These handles will want to bow in, so you can either bend them back out when you're done, which I did here, and they come back out straight, or just be very careful. You can maybe fixture it up. If you're just welding the outside, maybe waiting to do your full welds to the very end with it welded to the core might be best, and then the tack welds along the core will keep it nice and straight. Well, next up, we're gonna put our HDs on the end tanks. And to do that, I'm just gonna mark out my center point for my hole saw, and I'm just gonna grab a drill and punch right through. I know I'm using 2.5 inch in and out on this core, so I'm gonna just find the center of this faceplate here and put my center mark, center punch it, and then get the hole saw out. I always like to just double check, and once you drill a hole in these things, you can't really put the hole back. I'm just measuring from the side to the center and then flipping and making sure that I get the same measurement on either side. Give it a nice smack. Hole saw loaded up into my drill. This hole saw in a drill like this can bite you. I personally like to turn on the clutch on the drill if you have it. Otherwise, lots of lube, go slow, take your time. This is not the time to rush. Being a brushed finish, you can scuff these up and then restore the finish with just some Scotch-Brite. You know what? I'm actually gonna drill a pilot hole first. One. And guys, don't forget your safety glasses. All right, you can use WD-40. I've got some rapid tap here. And I suppose it would help if you had a full battery. This is Greg's very unimpressed face. Well, key story, moral of the story here is you can totally do it with a corded drill when the battery is full. So the nice thing about a mill is it's hardwired into the building. So you don't need to worry about batteries. Holes are drilled, just got to clean them up before welding. And I'm going to use a deburr tool to get a nice clean edge on both the inside end tank and the outside. You can do a couple things at this point. You can have like a little standoff spigot so that the ferrule is offset from the end tank. I've just got myself a little fixture here, and I'm just gonna place this over top just so that I can use the retaining ring and it'll be centered over top of the hole like that. You always start somewhere where it's inconspicuous, because guess what? Even though these are weld out of the weld out of the box ready, that's the one. I put coolant on them when I was cutting it, and I didn't clean them well enough, and I started getting some grime and coming out of the weld. So I stop, I make sure I clean everything really well. You know, make sure you do inside, my fingerprints, and just don't want that going in my weld. Speed Academy dropped by and we made some progress off camera with them. It went all right. Truth be told, this is my first core that I'm welding, and I learned a lot. Biggest one is I need more heat in the core. I have the machine maxed out at 200 amps, but I'm using pulse. So pulse helps keep heat out of the material so that I can make longer passes. I wasn't getting enough heat in there. So I'm gonna make some adjustments and see how this side goes. First things first is I'm gonna clean the whole thing again. I always use acetone with a clean rag. Dave and Pete were over here and they had their greasy mitts all over it. So I wanna make sure that I get all of that contamination off the core and the end tank before I get started. These cores are hand built in a fixture, so they don't come out absolutely perfect, but that served no problem on this side. All these small undulations will fill in as I'm going. Just make sure you have that filler ready. All right, and again, I'm directing my torch at the core still, and then washing my tack up into the end tank, and then easing off the pedal. Another trick is to touch your tungsten off the material that you're working with before arc striking. It helps get a nice clean arc start. A little cold at the beginning. Looks like I had a little bit of contamination there, but we'll live with it. Anytime I reach for new filler, I always clean it. Look at how nasty that filler is. Sitting around the shop, it's just gonna end up in my weld puddle and make things difficult for me. So give it a good clean with acetone and the rag. I position my tack roughly halfway through the weld. So I'm gonna try and get there in one pass, a dry pass, and then get into it. Okay, that turned out all right. Again, you're looking for welds that are nicely wedded into your end tank as well as your core. You don't want any ridges, and that means that you have nice penetration into both the core and the end tank. Remember to fill from the end tank side, because that's what's gonna wash away first. The core is not going anywhere, so you can, again, putting all that heat into the core and filling the keyhole. That's pretty good. I'm mostly happy with that. We can see again that you're welding to a heat sink, so that little bit of gap between welding this pass and this pass, everything got cold again. So I had to build up some heat from where I started to get a nice flush profile. We can see here, it's a little cold. And then in this area, it's wetted out nicely into the end tank. And then I stopped again, you can see it get cold. So typically what will happen is you'll be full on the pedal at the beginning, 100% down on the pedal. And then as you get further along your weld, you're easing up on that pedal. The sides of the puddle will tell you the heat that you're putting into it. You want those to stay consistent as you're going along. So you're gonna be ramping off that pedal. Touchdown! So when you guys do that, make a judgment call. Most times it's best just to get out of it. You can see exactly where I touched here. Luckily, it was just the tiniest of touches, but it does make a difference. In most cases, you should just stop. Stop exactly where it happened, clean up before trying to force it, which that's what I didn't do. That wasn't the best example, but one thing I'm definitely gonna do is I'm going to resharpen my tungsten because it's now partially contaminated before I get going on my last pass. We're done! Let's see how this puppy fits. That's an intercooler in a car.
Wow.
And again, we still have the adjustability and move it back and forth a little bit. So I just wanted to make a segue here and talk about how to size a core for your applications and all the trade-offs that come with it. With a core, you can grow in width, length, or height. They're the most efficient in the first third of the core. So if this is the flow path, the charge flow path, you divide this core up in 3, and the majority of the cooling is being done in the first third. So what that means is growing in length of a core, every inch that you grow in length, you're only getting a third of that inch of efficiency that's really adding to the cooling of the core. Thickness-wise, the majority of the cooling is happening in the first third of the thickness of the core. When you add flow paths, that's gonna be your biggest gain. So growing in height for a horizontal core or width in a vertical core will add whole flow paths that you're gaining the full length of that in the system. Ducting is critical to improving the efficiency of a core. This is like a wall for air, and as air hits this core, it's gonna wanna go around it. Some of it will go through it, but a lot of it will wanna go around it. The most efficient systems will ensure that the air that they are capturing, all of it travels through the core. So you'll see diverging ducts and then venting on the other side. Air travels from high to low pressure. If you create a low pressure behind, then it'll help improve the draw of air through the core. That's my tech tip for you today. Well guys, that sums up this episode. Got a couple things to button up on this core, just mounting, but what do you guys think? Did we go too small? Did we make the right decision? Let us know in the comments below, but don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for Charge Tubing next.